Today's topic: 4 signs that your agency is underperforming. Now, this assumes that, one, you're currently working with an agency. So for some of you folks out there that are attending that are not working with an agency, this is what to avoid. And for those of you who are currently working with an agency, I'm going to be upfront with you. It is my goal to at least convert one of you at the end of this webinar. That is, based on the information I'm going to present, I want you to seriously ask yourself, is my agency doing these things? And if they're not, it is my goal to have a conversation with you and really convince you that there's a better way to do this stuff, a more measurable way. And right now, you're probably flushing your marketing spend down the toilet. No bones about it. My goal is to convert you. We are a digital marketing agency. Been around since 2004. Really, it's a metrics-based approach that we take. Digital marketing is measurable marketing in my viewpoint. It's not about keywords on page 1 or anything like that. It's based on your marketing dollars, how many dollars did you get in return? If you invested $1 with me, I should give you more than $1 in return. I mean, that's why you're doing this stuff. And it's my contention that structured properly and you get the foundation right, you should be able to report on that. And yes, if your agency is not reporting on return on investment dollars, that's a fail. So really, you need to know that that's possible. It's not about keywords on page 1 or more hits to your website. Every time I hear those words, I cringe. You invest $1, and how many did you get in return? That's why we're doing this stuff. We're an Inc. 500 company for a reason. It's because we take that approach. So some practical matters before we get into this. Are the slides available? Yes, they're available. Feel free to reach out at SEO@webmarketing123.com. That's by and large the number one question we get all the time. The second, we kind of drink our own Kool-Aid, so feel free to reach out to us at webmarketing123, facebook.com/webmarketing123, and we're on Google+. My end goal is to have you guys sit down on a one-on-one with me and let me tell you what I can do for your business. So we have a complimentary SEO assessment, so feel free to reach out either directly to me or at SEO@webmarketing123.com. So the agenda for today, 4 things here. Just a couple quick slides on the marketing landscape changing yet again. And this webinar really is geared towards that B2B marketer out there. So lead gen is your end goal. You're trying to get form fill outs. Your average sale price is probably on the higher side. You might have a CRM system like a Salesforce or a Zoho or something like that. Really, I want to talk to you. That's my target audience. So the second point we're going to talk about here, black box is BS. I mean, straight up, no bones about it. If any agents say it's our proprietary software or anything like that, it's not rocket science, guys. It's about rigor. And we're going to go into what I mean by that. What does metrics-based reporting look like? So some KPIs or key performance indicators that you should be looking at as the person investing in this thing. And I want you to ask those tough questions. Does my reporting look like this? And if it doesn't, again, I'd love to talk to you. The fourth thing, we'll offer an opportunity analysis at the end. I will do a kind of a live site analysis. So feel free to send the keyword that you want to rank for and your website, and I'll do my best to see if we can get some time at the end of this thing and go through what that kind of SEO audit would entail, and see if we can tailor it for your business. So the first thing, the world's changing. Google's changing the game on this every day. If it's Penguin this, it's Panda that, and the links are important, but you don't want to get too spammy of the links. And as a marketer and someone in charge of growing the business via the web, it's tough to know what's real versus what's not, and what Google's gonna like versus what they're gonna hate, and it's tough. It really is. Which is why agencies like us exist in the world, where we work with hundreds of websites across verticals, and we have the luxury of looking across hundreds of website analytics, what works and what doesn't. So kind of a benefit of working with us. So kind of looking at a recent B2B conference that Google held really this year. Our CEO got a chance to attend it. A bunch of B2B folks got in the room. Google slapping up some slides talking about the importance of being visible on the web, particularly if you're that B2B marketer. And really the point here, no surprise, folks are turning to search engines. And if you look at the year-over-year changes for B2B searchers, we're looking at 23% more B2B decision makers are turning to search engines more and more. So last year, less turned to search engines. This year, there are more people turning to search engines. And one of the things I always hear, for those who actually end up wanting to do the free consultation, they say, Mike, I'm a highly niche. There's only like 3 keywords that maybe people are searching for, and I don't know that the search volume is there. And 9 out of 10 times, we end up finding way more keywords that end up making sense for their business, and they're always surprised at how many more people were searching their stuff than they thought. And then the other take was, holy smokes, we're not visible. What are we going to do about this? We need to figure out, is this a big deal for you or not? And I'm not sure if you guys have quarterly or yearly revenue goals, but if you're like any other company out there, you want a target to hit. And some folks are more aggressive than others, and sometimes you're given this revenue goal with little direction on how to get it. Kind of do more with less, right? So here's a channel, that is search engines, and this thing called search engine optimization and pay-per-click, where maybe you haven't tried it before, or maybe you have, and it failed miserably. And the point I'm trying to make is there's a better approach to doing this stuff. And bottom line is your prospects are turning to the web, whether you're B2B or B2C, and they're turning to the web more and more year over year. The other point here is this slide kind of talks about the percent of B2B customers using the following sources to discover new brands. So search engines, again, kind of leading the way. Video sharing sites like SlideShare and that sort of thing, and social network sites are starting to show on the map. But by and large, it's search engines that folks are turning to. And one kind of startling statistic that I came across recently, and I like to share this on each of the webinars, particularly for those B2B folks who are skeptical, and then they say, oh, there's no way that people are turning to the web, and I don't see the importance of it. Well, in fact, it is, and they are. This was a study done by Forrester this year that said 70% of B2B buyers are moving, are kind of through the sales process to the point where they've already made their decision. 70% of their decision process is made before they even talk to a sales rep. Key thought here is, are your pages on your website robust enough to function as a virtual sales force? So, I mean, point being is, think of how you do searches. When I'm doing a high consideration kind of purchase, and by high consideration I mean it's worth a lot. Your average sale price is super high. Chances are I'm gonna look at maybe 2, 3, 4 different vendors prior to making a decision. And when in that decision-making process, I'm turning to search engines and I'm doing searches. Company, widget X reviews, or just looking for that detailed descriptive keyword. And I'm looking who's on page 1. And believe it or not, people look at Google's natural search results as kind of a third-party validation point. And if you're not there and your competitor is, chances are they're getting first crack at your at your prospects. And the other point here is, when you look at your content that you put on the web, is it walking through kind of the sales process? Because 70% of this B2B buyer's decisions being made before they even talk to your super hot sales rep that you're paying a ton of money for. So some tough questions you need to ask yourself. 4 billion searches are done on Google every day. 95% of clicks happen on page 1 of the search results. And further, 60% of those clicks happen within the first 3 results. We go over these slides for a reason to kind of let you know that, hey, you got to be there. And this shouldn't be a surprise for a lot of you folks who've been attending our webinars for years. Second point I want to make here, now let's get into, let's say you've been working with that agency for a while now. I want to go over kind of some pitfalls that they might be employing. I want to go over kind of a better process, some reporting that you should be getting, and just some signs that, hey, maybe this isn't the best fit. And at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science. It really isn't. And proper search marketing is rooted in a solid foundation, meaning they've done the keyword research, you've mapped them to the proper pages, you're generating content to support it, and you're adding links on a regular basis, and then you're tracking this stuff. It's as simple as that. And some folks, they get all caught up. Oh, I got to build links, and I got to build them on a frequent basis, and I got to build a lot of them. Well, they're doing that without even realizing, are you even going after the right keywords? Do you have any clue what keywords are going to convert for you? And there's best practices in order to figure that out, and get some tracking in place. So some of the questions that I like to kind of go over, and how to determine whether or not your agency set up the right type of foundation. Here's some things I like to go over. So let's start with this one by one. If you ever ask yourself, or you ever think that you have an inclination that maybe the keywords that you're going after aren't any good, or maybe the agency said, hey, here are the best keywords to go after, without even kind of going over a detailed, well, what do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Client? And have you talked to your sales reps? They're the ones that talk to these prospects on a day-to-day. Have you polled your sales reps? That might be a good starting point. And another idea is, do you have a keyword mapping document? So after sitting down with that agency, and you signed the T's and C's, you're on that agreement, you've done the keyword research, did they show you a mapping document? In other words, here are the keywords I'm going to target on which pages. I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. And if you haven't, this is a fail, F-. The third point I want to talk about here is a concerted link building effort. It should be no surprise that Google looks at links on other websites pointing to your site as votes. It's been probably drilled a million times in your head, and you probably get bombarded from everyone and their mother that's an SEO company saying, oh, we'll do PR, page rank 5 links and above for $100, and you should work with us for XYZ reasons. And bottom line, links are important. Diversity is important. It should be happening on a monthly basis, and your agency should be reporting on it. And if they're not, F-. Next point here is not tracking keywords from source to paying customers. And I'm going to go over a report on what that should look like. And this is a biggie, and which is why I bolded it and underlined it. You should have the ability. Let's say someone does a search on Google for, say I'm a financial software vendor, and I want to rank for financial software. Obviously I want to rank within the first few positions on Google. So if someone turns to a search engine, let's say they go to Google and type in financial software, you should have, there's the ability to track that individual. That is, they come to your website, they fill out a form, right? We have the ability to pull in that keyword, financial software, pull in the source, which is Google, attach it to that record, and pull it into your CRM system, like Salesforce, for instance. and then track it along the sales cycle so that on the other end, after it takes 12 months to close them, I can then tell you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, it was financial software that led to that closed deal that was worth $100,000. And my very next question is, where on Google did I rank for that keyword? And if it's not in the #1 position, I now have greater incentive to get your ranking higher. That is possible. It does exist. And if your agency hasn't told you about that and they're just reporting on keywords on page 1, F-. Next point here is little to no content generation efforts that are consistent with your keyword mapping document. In other words, you highlighted the keywords, you've mapped them to their proper pages, but there's no supporting content. So it's no wonder you're not ranking better for these keywords, because those keywords that you're trying to go after aren't on the page itself. So yet another reason to make sure that you have the right foundation. Another thing I like to go over is if you've ever said or thought the following. There's a lot of web design firms that kind of saw this SEO bandwagon, and then they started to say, oh, we do SEO too. So I know if your web design firm ever said, hey, I know we're your web design firm, but we also do SEO. All it costs extra $500 a month. We can add it to your invoice. Big red flag. Next item on here, if they've ever told you, hey, you know what, going after 100 keywords or 200 or 500 doesn't make sense. You should just go after these 5. And by the way, 3 of them are branded terms. Another red flag. And then the last one here is you have no idea how much closed-won revenue or pipeline revenue came from their work. If you don't have the ability to do this or track this, I would say you're investing in a hope and a dream. So there are ways to track this stuff. If you want to find out how, feel free to reach out to us. I'd love to talk to you. All right, let's go on to this. Again, not rocket science. It's all about planning, implementation, tracking, and iteration. And round you go. Part of this is, selecting the right keywords. And by selecting the right keywords, and I'm talking about how to get that right foundation. Now we're going to go into, all right, now we know some of the pitfalls based off of, hey, with my agency I'm currently working with, here's how you do it right. And it starts with education, and by education I mean, what are the right keywords to go after and why should I go after them? So I have a couple of slides up here. This first one, I'm sure folks have seen it before. There's a difference between going after keywords that are single phrases, like shoes, for instance, and then there's this thing called long tail keywords, like red Nike men's running shoes. The trick here is to find keywords that are kind of in between this. You don't want to solely go after single keyword key phrases. Especially if you're a kind of a smaller type of company or you're going up against IBM or Amazon, chances of you ranking, let's stick with that financial software example. Obviously I'd want to rank for software, right? It's what I provide. But the chances of you ranking for it, one, it's going to cost a ton of money to get there. And 2, it might not convert as well as you might think. So the probability of conversion for that single keyword key phrase isn't going to be as high. Yeah, you'll get visibility for it, but no one's going to be running to fill out your web form and sell to me. Now, if I ranked for maybe best SMB financial software, I'm already raising my hand saying, hey, not only am I interested in software, I'm looking for the best one for small to medium-sized businesses. So the chances of me converting are super high at that point, so high likelihood of conversion. But the search volume for a keyword like that is going to be super low. So the trick here, and now leading me to this next slide, is finding keywords that are right around 3 to 4 terms in length. And what this study came from, this was actually an SEOMoz.org study. A bunch of marketers kind of opened the kimono and shared their data. And what we found was keywords that were 3 to 4 terms in length had a higher likelihood to convert, which isn't too surprising. So the key is finding keywords that are just long enough, yet not too competitive, and still have decent search volume. I would start with those. And sometimes it makes sense to go after keywords in phases. For campaigns that we manage where we've been working for years and years with them, sometimes we'll have a kind of a phased approach where, Phase 1 is going after longer tail key phrases. Phase 2 is then going after slightly shorter keyword key phrases. And then phase 3 is going after those what we call head match or shorter keyword key phrases. Even though they're not going to convert as well as we might think, over time it just makes sense because we've already locked up the longer tail and the shorter tail phrases. So now we have a good sense of, all right, the length of keyword and kind of a phased approach idea. So now that you have a sense that, all right, now I know kind of the length of terms, why it makes sense because I'm trying to get them to convert. And if there's any confusion by conversion, let me be clear. A conversion in my mind is someone who fills out a web form. So someone does a search for best financial SMB software, journeys to your website, and fills out that web form. And this is for that B2B marketer who's looking for lead gen as their #1 driver. And I don't want to alienate the B2C folks out there. Conversion for you is someone who does that search, puts an item in the shopping cart, and actually purchases something. So same conversion jargon applies. So now that you have a good sense of what keywords and the length of terms make sense, now you turn to tools. And the tools we turn to, I know there's some fancy paid ones out there. We go to the source, that we turn to the Google AdWords tool. And the reason Google provides this tool is because they want, they make 90+% of their revenues from AdWords. So why not make it super transparent? And if you plug in these keywords, I want me as Google, I want you to get a sense of how many people are searching these terms on a monthly basis. And here's a sense of competition in the way of, if you were to bid on these keywords, here's how competitive it would be. But the beauty of using this tool is that it'll give you other ideas. So you plug in these keywords and it'll give you a bunch of other ones that you never thought about. So the next thing I do is I export all this information and then I turn to a kind of a rank tracking tool. And there's a bunch of tools out there that if you plug in your website, it'll tell you where you're ranking on Google. And if you've never heard of that before, that free site analysis that we would do for you, we would do this for you and give you a ranking report, where you rank today versus your competition. All right, so now that you know that the right kind of set of keywords, you know kind of what tools to turn to, now there's a keyword selection process that makes sense and a keyword mapping that needs to happen. And if you've never gone through this exercise with your agency before, again, F-. You need to know how important these keywords are. And we physically go through them one by one, and we say on a priority 1 to 10, 10 being highest priority and 1 being not priority at all, where does this fit in the grand scheme of things? So there should be the keywords, how important they are to you, where you currently rank or your jumping off point, how many monthly searches there are, and just a sense of competition. And this competition call is you do a search on Google. Google says here's the 10 listings out of 38,100,000 web pages. And relative to the other keywords in your basket, then you have a good sense of, all right, how competitive is this keyword? And it turns out this second one is super competitive, application management software. It's a medium priority for our client, and he didn't rank anywhere when we first started, but there are 390 people typing in on a monthly basis. So he said, yep, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one, and this one. So, and this is a collaborative effort. This isn't us as an agency forcing it on them. It was, here are the keywords that make sense. We use tools, Google tools, to expand those keywords. And we look at their competitors and say, hey, here's what your competitors are ranking for. And let's look at which ones to go after based off of search volume, length of the term, and how many people are searching that on a monthly basis. Then once you have that, then you want to map them. And again, if you don't have something like a keyword mapping document, I would say you're building a house without blueprints. It might be standing today, but who knows what it's going to look like next month. And by having something like this, my next question is, okay, if we're targeting these 3 keywords on the home page, I now need to look at that home page and say, is it within the page title? Is it within the meta description? Is it within the copy? Am I building links from other websites, pointing it to the home page and not to some deeper enterprise financial software page, for instance? And this is where you get continuity. And what I do is I make sure that if you work with a PR firm or that outside consultant who does the content writing, that everyone and their mother gets this document. And we all agree that this is where we're targeting keywords. And I'm going to go to that web page, and if it's not in that content, my very next action item is to come up with a list of recommendations in order to get them there. This is how you start to get that foundation right. All right, let's move on. So as part of that plan, again, I mentioned that now that you have your kind of mapping document, now you need to look at and make sure that you have those keywords or have some content recommendations. And you have some tough questions to ask yourself. Can I generate this content, or am I going to lean on the agency to write this content? Or do I hire a independent contractor to write this content? But the key thought I want you to walk away from is, who's going to write this content? Because we're hearing more and more that content is king. Google's making their algorithm changes, particularly around the quality of the content. And you can't get by with just a couple of ideas and slap the keywords in there a few times. It needs to be value add type of content. In other words, why you versus your competition, maybe your value proposition in there. And it needs to be consistent and get the terms that you agree upon, either internally with your in-house guy or with your agency. Where am I going to mention this content? And you need to kind of have some best practices. And obviously I like to have more content than less on a given page. We do entire webinars on content writing for SEO. Matter of fact, you can turn to our website. We archive all of our webinars, find the one on content writing, and look it up. Because I could talk literally for hours just on best practices and where to mention it and how many times. But the point I'm trying to make here is there's a foundation that needs to be done, and if this hasn't been done, again, one of the signs that your agency isn't working out for you. So this is kind of what the full kind of map looks like. And this was an actual report that we generated for one of our clients back in the day. So we have your keyword, where I'm targeting it, the recommendations, and this is a living document, by the way. And after you're done, yep, recommendations are implemented. We got those 200 words of content, and here's the owner. And I mean, this is kind of like basic project management. One of the biggest, we work with a lot of companies that used to work with agencies, and they got burned in the past. And there's a few of the major gripes that I hear is, well, they weren't proactive enough. It was always me telling them, where am I ranking? What are you going to do this month? And how come it's not done yet? Versus, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I took the initiative and I came up with some ideas and I wanted to run them by you. That's a big thing that we always hear. And then the second thing is there's no project manager on the campaigns. They throw them over. Sales sells them, throws them over the wall to account management or quote unquote fulfillment team. And these are some young kids out of college, and they don't have any project management skills, and they sound young, and they're not getting the job done because they don't have any project management skills. That is, what's the action item, when is it due, and who owns it? So something like this is, while simple and seemingly easy, when you look at kind of the execution, it's just like it's jaw-dropping, and you can't. It's no wonder that people are getting bad experiences out there, and because they don't have simple kind of documents and a project plan in place. So again, another reason, if you don't have anything like this, another reason your agency might not be doing as well as they should be, and probably another reason why your ranks aren't increasing, your revenue's not increasing. So you should also have a link strategy document as well. And diversity in links is key, and this is another kind of report that we go over with our clients. This is the channels I'm going to try to get these links from. Here are the keywords I'm going to go after in any given month. Here's how many the searches there are for it, and here's where we currently rank. So kind of, again, a straightforward document on here's the plan, here's how I'm going to execute it. And again, if you've never seen anything like this before, yet another reason. Content is the fuel that powers a link building strategy. And go back to before you start something like this, who's going to generate this content? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be a vendor? Is it going to be the agency? Someone's got to do it. Transparency and reporting. We build links for our clients, no doubt about it. It's important. Kind of a key thought I want to get across here is, when was the last time you saw a Lincoln report? If you're working with an agency right now and you haven't seen a link report like this, that is, here's the website I'm using, here's where you can physically add that keyword and slap it into a browser and see where it's at. Here's the date I submitted it. Here's the date I verified it. Here's the keyword I went after. Here's the consistent with the keyword mapping document. And what's the status? Is it listed? Great. Is it listed and cached? Even better. So transparency and reporting is the key here. Yet another reason, if you're working with an agency, I'm beating this in the ground, and you haven't seen anything like this, probably another reason why you're not being successful. All right, now let's go into reporting. What does metrics-based reporting look like? And there's kind of a few things I want to get across here. You want to standardize these metrics, and it creates kind of a few things happen when you get reporting like this in place. There's transparency in what's being done, there's shared goals, and there's accountability. So who owns it? When is it due? What does winning look like? Which KPIs or key performance indicators are your priorities? And it shouldn't be hits to my website. I can't tell how many people come to us and say, I'm just looking to get more hits. I would say, and my next answer to that is, we're not the right agency for you. It should be, I'm looking to get a return on investment by this date, by these means. Here's kind of a scorecard that we use for a few of our clients. It's broken down by what we're doing for them on this column. Here are the KPIs that we're tracking. We solidify the start date. In other words, day zero, jumping off point, or JOP as we call it. Here's how many website visitors you got. And we take the task of saying, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Client, here's what we think we're going to get. And we put ourselves out on a limb, and we say, here's what we think winning's going to look like. And notice what happens. Sometimes it's not consistent with just growth, growth, growth. We make realistic projections. And we say, you know what, it looks like February is a low month in terms of search volume. And I want to make sure that you're aware that searches might go down. But we're transparent. We say this is what's going to happen. But ultimately, at the end of those 12 months, I guarantee it's going to be more than 153,000. It better be. Looking at percent growth in websites year over year is another metric we look at. Non-branded traffic. If we're doing PPC, the number of leads, very important. The cost per lead, that should be going down. Sometimes we'll do social media campaigns for our clients, and they care about Facebook likes and followers. And you know, these are kind of tertiary metrics that we look at. But at the end of the day, it's how much pipeline revenue have you guys earned us? How many close won dollars have you won? And I want to kind of get to that report really quickly. And then, of course, we kind of put in the actuals right here, and we do a kind of a red-green formatting, so you have a sense of, all right, it's kind of, this is a metric that gets the flashlight on it for that month. What are you going to do differently in order to increase this number that you said you were going to get to this? And so we come up with a countermeasure type of plan of action. And again, that's where the accountability it becomes super transparent. You know, a steady ranking report should look like this. This is an actual client. I scrubbed the name, obviously. But here's some of the keywords. Here's the search volume. Here is the initial ranking report. And there's some keywords that we added to the campaign, even though they were ranking #1, because we wanted to make sure they stayed there. But there were a lot of keywords that were ranking on page 2, 3, and beyond, that after consistent optimization, that is making sure that you map those keywords to the right pages, get them within the content, get them within the headers, the page titles, and then add links on a consistent basis, you should see this type of progression. So kind of like a heat map, progression from left to right. And if you'll notice, we've been working for this client over a year now. And the majority of their campaign keywords, we started not totally on page 1 to the majority of them in the #1 position. You know, I realize this paints a pretty picture for us, which is why I selected this one as the example. But sometimes, you know, it'll end up here. So then we need to say, okay, what are we going to do differently? Let's do a countermeasure and put together that plan of attack. But you should get reporting that looks something like this. And if you're not getting month over month kind of tracking like this, again, another reason why your agency might not be the right one for you. Now I'm getting to that kind of the second term of second phase of tracking, which is more of a return on investment. This is a report that we've just started to be able to generate. And again, this is for our B2B clients that have CRMs like a Salesforce, for instance. We have the capability of tracking organic keywords to close $1. That is possible. That is someone doing a search for a keyword, and we can track how many raw leads were generated, how many opportunities were generated, and how many closed won deals came in as a result of that, so that we can then start to do some interesting stuff. And by interesting, I now want to know, where on earth do I rank on Google for the keywords that lead to close $1? So I'm going to run a quick poll really quickly, just out of curiosity. Let's see here. I want to know, can you generate a report like this today? If you're that B2B marketer, I'm curious, can you generate a report like this today? And I'll wait a few more minutes for the majority of the folks to finish doing the poll here. Interesting. I'm able to look at the kind of percentages change as people vote. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. I'm going to share the results. So 86% of you say no. 14% say yes, you can, but you've never have. I'm curious, if you're able to do something like this, why wouldn't you want to do something like this? Because my next question is, I want to know where you rank on Google for these keywords that lead to close $1. And doesn't it just make sense to want to know that? And you want to get those keywords ranking higher, right? So you might want your agency to have, or your in-house guy, or someone who's in charge of driving more traffic, have some visibility into this. So then, you know, they might come up with something, I don't know, earth-shattering, like, hey, there's this keyword that's generating all this revenue, and, you know, we don't rank in the #1 position. It might make sense to want to, you know, target that keyword a little bit more because it's leading to close $1. So 0% of you said that you can't generate a report like this. So if you'd like to generate a report like this and want to get it structured such that it looks like this, I'd love to talk to you. All right, so we're about 20 minutes left. Let's see here. So it doesn't, let's see if we can have time to run a kind of quick live site analysis. If you want me to take a look at your website and the top keyword that you want to rank for, I'll do a live site analysis, and let's see if we can do that for you. So feel free to put in the #1 keyword you want to rank for and your URL, and let's see if I can find some time for you. All right, so kind of some other key thoughts here. You know, as marketers and, you know, particularly CMOs, you know, the expectation from higher up is, hey, it's more about profit and loss. It's not about, you know, keyword ranking. And it's becoming more and more important to quantify what you're getting based off of your investment. You know, your revenue should be rising, not just your traffic. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And this is actually an analysis that we can run. And oftentimes what we hear is, yeah, I know SEO is important. Yes, I know PPC is important, and increasingly social media is being important. But I just can't get internal buy-in. It just doesn't happen. Every time we talk about it, it's always, well, if I invest X amount of dollars, how many dollars am I going to get in return? And what we can do is run that analysis. We can do it, and this is kind of our value proposition. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to where they say, I've talked to about 50 other agencies, and I feel like I can do SEO at this point. But never has there been anyone to kind of sit down and say, okay, if I invest X amount of dollars, how many potential dollars can I get in return? And the way we're able to do that is kind of to go through what we call a cost of not ranking on Google. That is, given X amount of keywords, how many monthly searches are there done on a monthly basis? And for this particular prospect that we talked to, it was costing them $32 million on an annualized basis, $2.7 million on a monthly basis to not rank for these keywords. And what gets me, and anytime I see an average sale price like this, 100K average sale price, that's usually what tips the scale, and you have decent search volume. So we go through some math and we say, okay, if we were to get on page 1 for all these keywords, there's some studies that say if you rank in the number 1 position and you fluctuate from ranking 1 to 10 somewhere on page 1, there's anywhere from a 7 to 8% click-through rate. That is, for every 100 searches done on a given keyword, if you rank somewhere on page 1, you can expect 7 clicks for every 100 searches. So 7% of 1 million searches, 1.02 million, is 71,000 visitors to the site for these guys. So he said, all right, let's look internally on your web metrics. And if you have these ones on, we can do this analysis for you. That is, looking at conversion to lead. And analytics, Google comes out with a study every year, and they say a typical conversion rate. That is, someone does a search, lands on your website, a typical conversion rate fluctuates between 1% to 3%. 3% is on the higher end or a well-optimized website. And in looking at these guys, they've done a lot of best practices for conversion rate. So we said, all right, let's apply that higher rate because you already have a good call to action. So 3% of 71,000 is 1,700 actual raw leads. But you and I know that for every Joe Schmo that turns to the web, there's an 80-20 rule. That is 80% junk, 20% quality, which is why it's super important that you have a lead qualification process in place. If you are throwing all web leads to your sales folks right now, that is not what you should be doing. Because what ends up happening over time is there's this stigma that ends up happening. Folks end up, some of the sales folks, and I've been part of it, where all of a sudden you say, you know what, 8 out of 10 web forms that come from the web aren't good. So there's a stigma that ends up happening where you think that leads from the web are no good. But that couldn't be further from the truth. There are 2 out of 10 that are super legit. But the beauty about leads from the web is that it's scalable. And there's a lot more. So when you're dealing with volume, that's why you need a lead qualification process in place. And there are some clients that we worked with initially where they said, oh, I'd love to have that problem. I would love to have a lead qualification process in place, but the volume just simply doesn't warrant it. So sometimes we'll track this on a quarterly basis and we'll check back in. Hey, how'd those leads turn out this past month? Let's talk to your sales reps. Are they starting to grumble about, 8 out of 10 aren't any good, so I put less emphasis on those, and I kind of focus more on those trade show ones because those are better. I'd keep a close ear to the ground, listen to your sales folks, and if they start to, grumble about leads from the web, might be time to get a lead qualification team in place. Sometimes there's agencies that will do that for you, believe it or not. And it doesn't necessarily require that guy that has been there for 15 years to do the lead qualification. Sometimes just some 3 simple questions can help a great deal in filtering these leads. Sorry for going on that quick tangent, but it's important that kind of based off of our experience what happens when you do this stuff effectively. Lead to qualified leads. We see anywhere from a 15 to 20% qualified lead. So 15% of 1793 is 269, or here the number of qualified leads I can expect based off of this initiative. That is getting all these keywords ranking somewhere on page 1 of Google organically. And we can do the same analysis for PPC, by the way. So if you want to have any kind of question, and we're just looking at SEO here, but if you have any questions on, hey, can you do the similar analysis for pay-per-click, we can do this as well. And then typically a lead to sale. They had a 10% close rate on for every 100 qualified leads. They were only able to close 10. What I told them was, I said, you guys need to seriously reconsider your qualification process, because if you're only closing 10 out of 100, there's something seriously wrong. You should at least have a 50-50 chance at that point. So, I talked to them and we said, hey, we need to take a long, hard look at how you're qualifying these folks. Because if your sales reps are only closing 10 out of every 100 qualified leads, I might be looking for some new sales reps, seriously. Or there's something wrong with your lead qualification process. But typically I like to see this anywhere from 30 to 40% in the way of lead to sale. So we said if you were to get on page 1 for 1.02 million keywords, we can get about 27 sales on a monthly basis here. And applying an average sale price, here's what it's costing on a monthly, here's what it's costing on that annualized basis. And then what we ended up doing is we did this analysis and we bucketed these keywords. And we put them in different business units or product lines. Because sometimes it makes sense to kind of go after this in a phased approach. So, they had like 12 different business units or product lines, and we did a similar analysis for each one and then tackled them based off of priority and how much it was costing them. So hopefully this kind of gives you a good sense of how we're able to justify why to go after this stuff. And if you want a similar analysis to this, I'd love to put it together for you. Feel free to reach out to either myself or SEO@webmarketing123.com. All right. So kind of step-by-step calculation in coming up with that. Here's some of the things that we would need in order to do that. So we would need a list of keywords so we can come up with the volume. Click-through rate, that is kind of coming up with the percent of keywords if we were to get it on page 1, and we can come up with these metrics based off of those we work with. It would be good to get, however, to get your internal visitor to lead numbers and your lead to qualified lead numbers, and of course your qualified lead to closed deal percentages. And if you don't have that, no big deal. We can look at kind of based off of the clients we work at and come up with some averages here. Average deal size, we can come up with number of closed deals times the average sale price, and here's the revenue potential based off of that. Of course, we can help you with this. So kind of some takeaway points here. Does your agency do any of these things? And if there's, and they might do some of these things, in which case, that's great. Do they ask for multiple meetings to establish what winning looks like? Do they talk about KPIs, and do they project what winning looks like? Do they discuss what your business goals are in the next 12 to 24 months? You should be forward thinking. Should be proactively making suggestions about optimizing calls to actions on your website. If you land on your website right now and it takes you more than 3 seconds to determine what you want me to do, chances are that's not an optimized web page. There's a book out there, Don't Make Me Think, I think it was, that did a study and said that searchers are so fickle these days that if you don't tell them what to do within 3 seconds or less, chances of them converting are slim to none. So there should be some A/B testing going on, or optimizing call to actions. And of course, you should be regularly checking in the Google Webmaster Tool for crawl errors, and they should be coming up with recommendations on how to improve page load speed time, because these are becoming more and more factors on Google determining whether or not to rank your site versus your competition. And then finally, there should be some type of tying someone doing a search on Google, filling out a web form, helping you configure your CRM so you can ask those questions, what keywords are leading to close win deals, and then reporting on that. That should be part of the process. So kind of tying it all together, you should demand transparency and accountability from your agency, whether or not they're the SEO team or PPC or social media. Shouldn't be, yeah, we're working on that. It should be a collaborative process. You should develop a familiarity with the terms and concepts so you can be an informed partner. There is such a thing as bad revenue. I'd be lying if I didn't say that we've taken on prospects that weren't a good fit for us. And at the end of the day, we're trying to find people who recognize their business challenges and some of the online solutions that can help fix this. And I'll be straight up. If some of you folks that come out and say, oh, I'm just looking for more hits to my website, I'm going to say we're not the right agency for you. So you want to adopt a metrics-based approach that measures the outcomes. Or again, I polled the entire audience, and 86% of you said you couldn't generate a report like that. 14% said you can, but you've never done it, and 0% of you said you can't do it. All right, so it looks like we kind of reached the end of our time here. We just to give you a sense about us, been around for quite some time now. We work with some well-known, established companies out there that hopefully you've recognized. If you want to kind of reach out to me, questions, feedback, mike.t@webmarketing123.com. You can also reach out for that kind of free site analysis, SEO@webmarketing123.com. We also do the State of Digital Marketing Report to give you a sense of where your peers are kind of seeing that return. So go to our homepage, webmarketing123.com. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to do these live site analysis, so apologies for that. If you'd like for me to kind of take a look at your website, come up with that cost and not ranking analysis, I'd love to do it, kind of justify internally why this is important and what you can get based off of investing in something like this.